Well, here we have that rare thing, a repair. I don't often personally take on repairs, although we do have a repair guy in the workshop. But today this has come in and I'm going to give it a go. This is a rather lovely Dobro, and there are quite a few things wrong with it, and predominantly the frets are the issue. First things first is diagnosis. The client says the neck doesn't work. He's had it for many years, and for many years it's just been in a case. So, fret rocker, very simply hold your fret rocker over 3 frets, and if it rocks like that, then that fret is high. As you go down it gets too long, that's over 4 frets, so you go to another straight edge. And so on. See, that's strange, it's not rocking there. And I can see a gap there. This is why we make our fret rockers black, so that you can actually see as well as hear. But it is rocking in the middle. And at the end there. Move over 1 fret at a time, and you can see. So this is all over the place, just in that area. We also make notched straight edges, of course. Don't forget to buy all of our tools. Now, the notches fit over the frets, and you can see what the actual neck itself is doing. Now, I should have done this before the fret rocker. The neck has a little bow in it, a little bit of relief, but not enough to be causing the strange issues we've got with the frets. Before I level, I'm going to have to adjust the neck to make sure that this is perfectly flat. Now, I suspect, yes, there we go. Part of the trouble is that the ends of the frets are actually lifting. So the glue or whatever has been used to hold them in, oh, that's very bad. The frets are moving and jumping, and that's going to have to be the very first thing that we sort out. How would one do that? Let's see. This is my method, and I'm sure others apply. I like teaching, but I also like learning, so if anybody's got a better way of doing this, let me know. First things first, being careful not to squeeze the wax underneath the fretboard. I'm putting wax on. And I then take a feeler gauge, and I'm just making sure there's no crud underneath the fret. Because this has been going on for a while. And, well, we're guitarists. Crud develops. And basically, I am going to put some glue in from the top. It's going to go into the slot, and also from the side. Now this is super glue, cyanoacrylate, whatever you want to call it. It's good stuff. You've got to be careful, you don't want to make too much of a mess. Bring the guitar back. Now, I hate super glue accelerator with a passion. It's smelly stuff, but it also means that I'm not going to have to stand here holding this fret down for too long. I'm holding it down with a bit of wood. This is a reject handle from one of our spot leveling file tools. And there we go, the super glue has cured. And we have a mess now. Time for a sharp chisel, and hopefully the wax that we put on the fretboard will have stopped the glue from drying to the fretboard. Sharp little chisel, and there we go. The super glue is just peeling away, and we have no damage to the fretboard whatsoever. Lovely. If you didn't put the wax there, well, it would be a different story. There we go. Also, it does have to be a sharp chisel. See our other videos. We've done tutorials on sharp chisels. Okay. There we go. Just double check. Yep. Perfectly stable, perfectly solid. I now have 7 or 8 more fret ends that are lifting. We have glued down pretty much every fret end, and they're all stable now, and the time has come to clean up years and years of grime and dirt. Now I'm using lighter fluid, good stuff. Naphtha is also commonly used. Now the thing is, this dissolves grease and rubbish and all that sort of stuff quite nicely. It also dries out the fretboard, and you don't want a particularly dry fretboard. So once we've finished here, and after working and talking, after we've finished profiling the frets and all of that, we're going to have to re-oil the fretboard. But you knew that already, didn't you? The fretboard has been cleaned up somewhat, and now it's time to start leveling the frets themselves. First thing to do is get the neck as straight as possible. Now, that is often more difficult. You can't really see, but just here where the body joins, where the fretboard goes over the body joint, there's a hump, which is not surprising considering that the fretboard goes off on its own at that point. So anyway, using the truss rod, I'm going to adjust it and experiment until we are as square and flat as possible. And this is where a straight edge, a notched straight edge, is very useful. And of course our notched straight edges are black, which means that you can it makes seeing the gap much easier, because what you're looking for is light. I'm working and rambling and rambling and working, and trying to sell you some tools as well. There we go. That is as flat as this particular fretboard is ever going to get. Time to mask off the frets. And I'm going to be using some yellow low tack frog tape. This stuff is great. Effectively, bring it up to one edge, and my life would not be complete without scalpel blades. You don't need to spend a lot of time sharpening. I use my fingernail to bring the tape in close, and the scalpel blade actually goes at an angle underneath the fret. And there we go. And the piece you cut off can be used further on up the neck. I forgot part of the process, part of the masking off process. Narrow I suppose is the word really. Narrow masking tape goes on the edge first, and this means that I can polish the ends of the frets as well, and it also means, I'll use this for an example, that goes over like that, and when I decide I want to take the masking off, I'll pull that piece off, bloop, and it'll lift the ends of all of these, and thus save you 2 or 3 minutes probably of messing around lifting up the ends of every single one of these pieces of masking tape on the front. So it both protects the guitar more and saves you time in the long run. We know that the fretboard itself is level and that the frets are not. Next stage is to level them by marking them all off with black permanent marker. With a fret rocker we can still see that that fret is high and rocking all over, and this applies pretty much all over the fretboard. And it's most strange. The neck seems to, well, the frets themselves we knew were lifting, and you know they've been problems. So now it is time to get out the Crimson Guitars fret leveling file. As well as guitars, we make precision engineered luthiery tools, and this is the first of them, a fret leveling file. The trick is, as the file goes along, it removes material from high frets and leaves black masking, or black markers, sorry, on low. And as you go along, you can see where the problems are. Now, be sure to go in increments along the full width of each fret, otherwise you're going to cause other trouble, and you don't want that. So I started in the middle, this fretboard feels weird. You can feel, or I can feel in my hands, what's happening as I go along, as well as see. So I started on the end, here we are. After 2 goes you can see there's still low points there. So we carry on. Now, Our fret leveling files come with the option to have this safe edge ground on them, and this allows you to use the tool as a fret crowning device, or at least an initial fret crowning tool. If you mark the frets off again, you can then safely round them over, at least if you've got relatively high frets to start with. And you can see it's not scratching the masking tape, and it's a lot more easy to control than traditional well, I find them easier to control than traditional fret crowning files, which are triangular, and I certainly find them much better than these things with a curve in them. These, you can't see what you're doing, and as you go over the end you tend to take too much off, and I hate them. I only keep them as an example. Now, that file is a starting tool. We also make traditional 3-corner fret crowning tools. These are finer toothed, and therefore the safe edge is closer to the edge than is possible with the fret leveling file. And as they're finer, it takes the scratches out better, although slower. So what I tend to do is I tend to start with one of these and then finish with one of these. And I now have 24 frets. I have 24, doesn't look like 24, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. No, it's a 19 fret guitar. It's just got 2 dots at the 24th to hide those bolts. That's it. Anyhow, I digress entirely. I have got 18 other frets to do. So, let's go. The next stage is to take some fine, well, this is 600 grit, wet and dry paper, leave it dry, and I wrap it around my finger like that, so that it goes over the frets. And then making sure to hit each fret along the whole length of the board, I remove the scratches from the fret leveling file. After doing the same thing with 800 grit wet and dry paper would be where I normally move on to fine wire wool, 000 or even 40. I don't particularly like wire wool and never really have. It's a particularly messy medium. It leaves bits of wire wool everywhere. We're experimenting with our own brand impregnated rubber. This has got a fine abrasive inside the material, and this can be used to achieve the same sort of polish on the frets as you would achieve with wire wool. Which is really rather impressive. Unfortunately, they do tend to wear away the masking tape. Once you have used our rubber abrasive to get rid of any of the scratches left over from the paper abrasive, the sandpaper, that is shiny enough to be left and is a state in which most guitar companies would be perfectly happy to leave their fret. However, Autosol, it is possible to get an even better finish and thus a faster fretboard. Autosol is a chrome chrome polishing cream, I suppose you'd call it, and it's great. It isn't particularly fluid and thus won't go underneath your masking tape and ruin your fretboard. Brasso, for example, is a no-no. Thank you very much. You will know that I often use a Dremel multi-tool and jeweler's rouge and all of that sort of stuff, and watch our other videos if you want to see me demonstrating that. But in the 3 seconds while I've been talking, I've used a little bit of paper rag and a little bit of this Autosol polish, and that fret is as shiny as it is possible for a fret to get. And there's no messing about with tools and machines and having to wear goggles to protect yourself and all of that sort of stuff. This is just good old hand polish and a little bit of work, and you're away. And here we have, after just a little bit of work, some of the shiniest frets that you will have seen. And as a result, this guitar is going to play really well. It's more than just about the action. Pulling up the tape that's on the side of the fretboard lifts the ends of all of the tape that's on the front. And you end up with something that is much easier to remove. And especially since we're using this yellow frog tape, which is a low tack tape, it's all really rather exciting. I have at times spent 10 minutes trying to remove tape after a fret job, and that 10 minutes, well, if you're trying to do this professionally, it's eating into your profit. That took me, what, 30 seconds? Let me look at the camera. 1 minute and 2 seconds from start to finish. I'm now going to get some lemon oil. I don't like lemon oil. It's carcinogenic as hell. It's got nasty things in it. But I don't have an alternative at the moment. I don't like using, well, the organic vegetable based oils don't tend to work. They tend to rot. And I don't know. I haven't found something that I like yet. If you have any ideas, let me know. So, the ivory nut has been cut roughly to size. Put your pencil on the fretboard and you can match the radius. Like so. The Japanese saw file is one of my favourite rasps, but the other side, the fine side, is perfect for bone. Again, it's actually made out of hacksaw blades. So for rough cutting, very rough and fast work, it does the job nicely. You have to be aware of chipping, but if you're careful you should be okay. You can see that the sides of the nut's position aren't square, so we've matched our nut, which so it's got a nice little flare to it. Once the string positions have been marked out, I use a razor saw for the initial cuts. In fact, a razor saw is perfect for the top two strings as well. You don't actually need a file for that. At this stage, I'm also going to round over the corners. The last thing you want is to bite into your hand as you're playing. You need a comfortable nut. I've fine sanded and spot glued the nut in, and the time has come to see if this guitar will take strings. That's a funny sound. So, yes, that appears to be properly lined up, and it's literally just a case of, if you're watching this video and you don't know how to string up a guitar, then, well, yes, I have nothing more to say. So we've got the strings very loosely on the neck. The action at the nut is incredibly high. The action at the bridge is as it was at the factory, and we don't want to change that particularly. Now the first thing I want to do is see what the neck is doing effectively, and for that I'm going to use my notched straight edge, and there is a bow in the neck, and I'm just going to double check as well. If you hold the string down, if you don't have a notched straight edge, hold the string down at the first fret and at the last, which is the 19th on this one, and again you will see that in the middle there is some relief, is the word I'm after. So we're going to have to use the truss rod to flatten that out a little bit. I've adjusted the truss rod, and that is as flat as it's going to go, and the time has come to reduce the height of the action at the nut. Now, I do this by feel. I will bring the strings up to tension and then tap it, and I can feel when there's a gap that I need. Other people say hold it down at the 3rd fret and it should only just have a tiny gap at the first, and that's that also works. So let us bring this guitar up to tension. Slowly. So we are about halfway through. We're about halfway through. We are halfway through. I've done those 3 strings, and you can see that is about as low as I would like to be. And it started out being there. You can use a feeler gauge to see how low you are there. Sorry, I'll do it so that you can see. And to be honest, I do this by feel personally. I wouldn't know what it should be. Anyway, that's one way to make sure that you're absolutely accurate, and I know guitar companies that do that. I do it by feel. That's too high, that's way too high, and that's not even in the slot. I really don't like guitars without straight string pull. It does make life rather difficult. Anyhow, first thing to do, move the string out the way and select the correct nut slotting file, or if you use a saw. And at some point we're in the process of developing our own specialist nut slotting saws, actually. Those will be showing up soon. do not take too much off. Now if you were listening there, you could hear that as I pushed it down, the note was actually out of tune with what it should have been at the nut. And that's because I was pushing down too far, because the nut action is too high. And there we have it. One lovely, perfectly set up Dobro.
I was a diving duck. Well, if the river was whiskey and I was a diving